If you help enough people get what they want, you will receive everything in the world that you want.
Tonight we have Brian Proctor here. Brian is the son of the famous Bob Proctor. Brian recently released his book, My Father Knew the Secret, Growing Up with Bob Proctor. That's all about his father. We recently bought his book. And it's an honor for us to have you here. Thank you very much for being with us, Brian.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here. It's fun to talk with you guys from the other side of the world right now.
Yes, yeah. Brian, it's a huge honor for us. So thank you for being here and making time to speak with us. We appreciate it.
Happy to. Thank you.
Okay. Brian, the book is dedicated to your father. How long did it take you to write the book, and what was your motivation behind writing it?
Well, the book took me probably 4 years or close to 4 years to write. I started to write it before my father passed away. And I was talking with my wife actually about writing a book, and I knew I had some value that I could put onto paper that people could read and would take something away with. And I said to her, I'm just not quite sure what to write about. And Corey said to me, she says, Brian, she says, all the seminars you're at, all the events that we do, the number one question everybody always asks is, what's it like to have, Bob Proctor as a father? What's it like to be his son? And it just kind of clicked. And I thought, boy, I could write about all the lessons, all the secrets, everything Dad taught me through my lifetime. So that's what sparked me to write the book. He knew I was writing it, and we had a lot of fun around it. Both my father and I were early morning people, so it wouldn't be unusual to find us both on the phone at 5 a.m. talking to each other. And I was sharing what I was writing about on one particular chapter, and I would ask him some questions about how it related and his perception of what was happening at that point in time. And so it was a lot of fun. It was good for the two of us. I did not know what I was going to call the book while he was alive, which is I wished he was here. I had a couple of different titles, but they just didn't feel right. And Dad always said to me, Brian, take your time. Take your time. It'll come when it's supposed to come. And, we were talking before this interview about coincidences and things. It's funny how it happened. It was 3 a.m. in the morning. I was having a vivid dream about my father. And I woke up, and it was like the title was in my head. My Father Knew the Secret. And I thought, wow, how perfect is that? So I got up and wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it. And I think back to, his life and what he went through. My father started out in the personal development industry in the 1960s. And in the 1960s, 1970s, it was not the industry it is today. It was not well known. People were kind of not receptive to it. So he really had to grind it out for a long time until it became, better known. He was really a pioneer in the industry. Well, when the movie The Secret and the book came out in, I think it was 2006, that really propelled him to a whole nother level. It opened up his audience literally globally, and it really changed the course of his business and his life. And so I thought, how perfect to name the book My Father Knew the Secret, when that is really what propelled him onto a real international stage. So it just felt right. I'm sure it was guided in some way, and it all turned out. So yes, it was 4 years in the making. It was quite a while, but it was a good journey.
Okay, that's awesome. Brian, we have another book we want to share. You just spoke about it right now. So we have this one as well. So we're pulling your work and your dad's work as well. But get to The Secret in a moment. Okay.
Yeah. But the cool thing is, just as a side note, Dad was 72 years old when The Secret came out. So, he started working in this industry in his 20s. It wasn't until he was 72 years old that he really got onto a big stage where, all of a sudden he's on Larry King Live, Ellen DeGeneres, all of these television shows that really got him seen to a whole new audience. So it is a testament to his persistence in the business and how he just kept kept forging the way. And it, he was not what a lot of people think was an overnight success.
Yeah, definitely. So about your book, is there a chapter that is your favorite that really resonated with you? And then maybe on top of that, was there also a chapter that you really struggled with?
Well, if I'm to give you an honest answer on that one, it's probably the same chapter. That would be the first chapter, saying goodbye. That was a really tough chapter to write. But it's also my favorite chapter because it showed in my father's worst time who he was as a man and how he treated people. And that's, it gets me emotional even just thinking about it. So if I was to pick a chapter, that would be it. And I think because it comprises so many lessons all within that one chapter, just in the way he treated people. So that would be my answer for you on that one.
That's awesome.
So it's my favorite, and it was also the most difficult to write.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
And that chapter I actually wrote, well, after my dad passed away. We were very, very close. We weren't just father and son. We were business partners. We were best friends. I mean, it was tough. And it took me, I don't know if it was 2-3 months before I could even start writing again. And that chapter was the very first thing that I wrote. I just felt that it needed to be there because he, as I said, he just showed at the worst of times who he was, how he treated people, and really how he lived his life. It's a pretty special message.
Yes, definitely. Brian, I've noticed the sand timer on the cover of your book.
Yes.
I watched a few videos of your father and you as well. And for me, I think you spoke a lot about living in the present.
Yes.
What message does that portray for you? And what did your father teach you about looking at the past or the future or just living in the present? Can you maybe tell us more about that?
I sure can. That's a great question. When I came up with a cover for the book, it was important to have the sand timer on there. I think more subliminally than anything else. The sand timer, I can remember Dad using going back to when I was a very young boy. It was always a big part of his message. In fact, I have one here.
Nice one.
I have one, right on my desk, and it's very similar to the one that's. Oh, there.
Yeah, we have one as well.
There you go. That's on the cover of the book. Yeah. So the sand timer, there's a special message with this. Dad had a saying. I used to love it when he said it from the stage. He says, "We cannot change the time we got out of bed this morning." Now, it sounds light and it sounds kind of funny, but there's a lot of meaning to that. What's happened in the past has happened in the past. We can't change it. The time we got out of bed this morning, whatever it was, that's what it is. So he said the sand timer really represents our life. And the sand at the bottom is our past. What has happened? It's already happened. It's gone. It's done, good or bad. And people that live in the past or keep repeating what's going on in the past in their head, they create blocks into what they're capable of doing because they either let a bad experience or, you hear some people that live the glory days of being on a high school football team and they talk about it until they're in their 80s. And that was their life. I mean, they're just, whatever it is, so many times we can live in the past. And he said, the future, we don't know how much time we've got. And we don't know what's there. All we have control of is the here and now, the present moment. And I wrote in the book, I said, what will happen in your life if you show up as the best version of yourself every day? And what I mean by that is if you live in the present moment and you be the best version of you every day in the present moment, don't live in the past, don't worry and fret about the future. What can you do right here and right now to be a better person, to be more effective in business, in relationships? If we can be present, our life will be so much better, so much better. It's such a simple thing, but I realize it's not always an easy thing to do. But if we can give that energy and think about it and really live in the present moment, our life will forever change and be on a good path.
do you think that's a lesson that you will remember from your father, or what's the one lesson that will stay with you forever? I know it's maybe a difficult question because there's probably a few, but is there one
There's
lesson?
quite a few.
Yeah.
So, the book, as you see, is like 360 some pages. So there's a lot of lessons. There's a lot of moments. So it's tough to pick any one particular one. They all stay with me for sure. But certainly living in the present moment, that's a big one. Because it really, so many people, if they're not living in the present moment, and if you live in the past or the future, you're just not going to be very effective, because you're just not. You're not doing what you can in the present moment. He always taught me that if we did whatever we could in the here and now, that everything else will get taken care of down the road. And so that was definitely a big lesson. If I was to say another lesson, if you have a minute, I can tell this little story, but it would be what he called the law of, or the impression of increase. And the impression of increase is where you leave everyone you come in contact with that day feeling better because they came in contact with you. That's a real gift. And this is how he explained it to me. I was 9 years old, and so I can still remember this lesson from 9 years old, and I have practiced it ever since. I was born in Toronto, Canada. And so I started school in Toronto. Then we moved to London, England. So I started a new school there. We moved back to Toronto in a different area of the city. So I started another school there. And then by grade 4, 9 years old, we moved to Chicago. My father started to work with Earl Nightingale and Lloyd Conant. So by the time I'm in grade 4, this is like my third or fourth school. It's, I was always that new kid in school, and it bothered me. And I remember sitting with Dad and talking to him about that. And I share this lesson in the book because it's very powerful. And he said to me, he says, Brian, he says, when you go to school, put these 4 letters across the forehead of everybody you're talking to, MMFI. And it stands for make me feel important. If you can make everybody you're talking to feel important, feel seen, feel valued, he said, you're going to make friends really quickly, and you're going to get on in this world in a great way, because people will want to deal with you. They'll want to be your friend. And so I started doing that. And how do you make somebody feel important? Sometimes it's as simple as a genuine compliment. Other times it's just listening, just being there, asking them questions and being interested in what they have to say. Again, going back to being in the present moment. You're not looking at your phone. You're not thinking, who else can I talk to in a room? You're zeroed in, and you're focused, and you're speaking to whoever it is you're speaking to. And you make them feel seen, heard, and valued. That was a really powerful lesson. When I got into real estate in my 20s, I was a real estate salesperson in Toronto. My very first year in the business, I was only 26 years old. I made it into the top 100 internationally for a very large real estate firm. And I did that primarily because of that lesson. I treated everybody as if they were the most important person in the world. And because I did that, they referred family, friends, whoever to me. I had so much business coming my way. And it's a great way to live our life. How often you think you go to a party or you're at an outing and you meet somebody and they just start talking to you, and they're telling you all about themselves and what they're doing and how great they are. And it's like, oh my God, I want to get away from this person. But if you meet somebody that's engaging and has asked you interesting questions and is really interested in you, well, you want to talk to them all day long. So that's really it. And the great part about it is that when you make somebody feel better because they were in your presence or that they met you, a few things will happen. You can change the course of their day for sure. But depending on what it is you're getting into, you could potentially change the course of their life. That's a powerful thing. So that was another really good lesson I learned at a very young age. And the great thing is I see my children now do it. And everybody that they treat and talk to, they leave them with the impression of increase. Everybody feels good talking to them. And that's a gift. And it's something that I don't think we give a lot of energy to.
That's a great one. So this book obviously is dedicated to your father and growing up to him. This might be a difficult one, but if your children ever had to write a book about you and the lessons that they learned from you, what would you want them to remember, and what would you like that book to be about?
Boy, there's a question I've never heard before. I like that. Boy, you know what? What would they write a book about? I think the fact that I would hope that they see me as a very giving and generous father. And I've always had a very special relationship with my kids. And I know that's because of what I learned from my own father. There's never been a doubt in their mind, do I love them? Do I care for them? And then that kind of stuff. There's never been a doubt. Dad always impressed on me that we should always let those closest to us truly know how you feel. And I've done that with my kids. I have great relationships with them. We get together, as often as we can. We certainly talk to each other a lot. I would hope that they would write about, the difference that I've made in the world in whatever way I can. I know with this book, I'm actually really, really proud of this book. And I say that not because it's about me. It's not. It's really about my father, and it's about everything he taught me, and from the perspective of a son and a friend. So, my wife said, Brian, you're the only one that can write that book, because you were the one that was with him his entire journey. My father was given the book Think and Grow Rich in October of 1961. And I was born in December of 1961. So, I have been with him the entire journey. And I'm proud of the book. I am absolutely in awe of the response we've gotten from it, the reviews, the comments that people are writing about it. So in my own way, I see this as making a big difference around the world. A book is an inexpensive thing to purchase. And I know you've got the book now. I promise everything in that book is everything my father taught me. I don't leave anything out. I'm not back-ending a program or a course that I'm trying to sell. I've given everything in this book at a price point that anybody can afford and read and actually start to apply into their lives to live a better life. So for me, I hope in my way, I'm sending something else out in the world that is helping to change lives. And I know my kids are seeing it. When my daughter read it, she said to me, she said, Dad, this book is really good. And I said, thanks, honey. She says, but I can really hear you speaking. Like it's just, it's everything about you is in this book by the way you wrote it. And she was really, really pleased with it. So it's probably the best way I can answer that question. That was an interesting question.
Yeah, that's awesome. So maybe one thing that I didn't see in the book and what we were wondering about, what did your father do for fun in his off days? What was his hobbies and stuff like that?
It's funny. Dad, his hobby was reading. He loved reading good books. So he wasn't out there water skiing or golfing or, anything like that. In his downtime, he loved to sit in his backyard and just read a good book. We sat so many times, the two of us even, just sitting in the backyard, and he would just look around. They have a beautiful backyard, and he just loved the trees and the birds and the squirrels and the animals that would be around. And he would always just say how grateful he was for how he was living, where he was living. And his off time or downtime was just reading a really good book. He had a passion for studying. And that was true to his core. What you saw on stage, that's who he was at home too. He was forever studying, forever reading good books, always trying to find a better way to teach. So, his passion was his work, and in a good way.
Brian, your dad spoke a lot about manifestation and visualization and affirmations. Can you maybe tell us the difference between those and how to incorporate in our daily lives?
Well, he was really big on affirmations and visualization. And really, visualization is just, closing you don't even need to close your eyes, but, just building a picture in your mind of what you want. he always said, and it comes from books that he's been reading all his life, we do become what we think about, what we give energy to, what we think about becomes a part of our life. So be careful what it is that you give energy to and what you think about. And he said that, we don't all have great paradigms. Some paradigms hold us back. Some things keep us from busting out and being the success that we truly want to be, whether that be business or even relationships, whatever. He said that we can change any of that with affirmations. And he was really big on writing it out every morning, any type of affirmation. And that is really all you got to think about is, how do you want your life to be? Where would you like to be? What would you like to have? What would you like to do? And if you can write that out in a short statement in the present tense, it's important it's in the present tense. He always said that your subconscious mind cannot reject, it can only accept whatever you impress upon it. So make sure that what you're writing is powerful, is positive, and is in the present tense, because your mind doesn't know any different. And he said, if you write out an affirmation every day, he says at first it might feel like a lie, because that's maybe not who you are at this exact moment. But he said, if you keep writing it out, he says, our mind will believe a lie if we read it often enough. And if you want to be a better person, if you want to do more in business, whatever that may be, if you write that out in the present tense every day, you might not see that change if you keep doing it a week from now or 2 weeks from now. But I promise you, if you keep doing it 6 months from now and a year from now, your life will be completely different, because you will have programmed your brain into being the person that you truly want to be. And when you do that, you will start to do things in a day that you would not have normally done. That's the key. So, visualization was always important. He was always dreaming and visualizing how he wanted his life to be, how he wanted to be the kind of teacher that he was, the home he was living in, everything. It all starts with visualization. And then the affirmation is just taking that and putting it into written form. That's the best way I can.
I think it's important to be specific as well. And I think he said, if you know how to reach your goal, then your goal is not big enough.
Right. Dad was always big on, and this was a great thing too, that I learned from a young child. He says, our goals should be big enough that we don't have a clue how we're going to reach them, but they inspire us. He said, if you know how to reach it, it's not really a goal. There's not going to be growth that's going to take place in going after something that you already know how to do. If you can find something, he said, when you write a goal, you have to pretend that you have a magic wand or Aladdin's lamp. What would it be if you could have anything? What would that be? And we need to give that thought. So often, most of us are walking around this world without a goal. We just live day to day. But boy, if you've got a goal, something that is huge, and you don't know how you're going to get there, but it inspires you, it will cause you to step out and do things that you would never normally do. And that's where the growth takes place. He always said the fun is not actually in achieving the goal. It's in the moving towards it, because that's when growth happens. That's when we do things we wouldn't normally do. I find I've got a big goal right now, and I find myself doing things in a day I never would have normally done. But it's such a big goal that it's causing me to step out and take action in ways that I feel is required to get there. Now, I don't know how I'm going to get there yet, and I'm looking for the way. And there's inspiration in that. If you have a big enough goal, you won't know what you have to do, but you'll just do. You'll get out and you'll take action, and you will do. And as you do, you'll find the way. Dad loved action takers. He always said, you've got to take action. The people that just dream of something and wonder why it's not coming into the world, he said, well, it's because they're not taking action. He says, the dream is a big part of it, but he says, then you have to get to work, take action so that you can bring into your world whatever it is you want.
So building on that, when you visualize and you write your affirmations, there's a part that we sometimes get confused with. Do we visualize and write for the lifestyle that we see ourselves living, or do we visualize and affirm some sort of financial happening that enables us to live that lifestyle?
So the real answer to that question could be either. It depends on how you work. For me, a set amount of money doesn't really do it. For me, it's what that money will do for me and what I can have in my life. So that's what I would visualize. There are some people that are driven by a number, by a money number. And if you're driven by that, then it could be that sum of money. It varies from person to person. That's what's great. We're all different. We're all individuals. I mean, if we're all the same, the world would be a pretty boring place. So, you have to give thought to what is it that inspires you, and that's what you need to write out. I met a fella, really, really great guy. His name was Tom. I met him at one of our Matrix events several years ago, and he's a mortgage broker, and he had a goal to, earn really a large sum of money, but the money wasn't what drove him. What drove him was helping the clients be able to get into a home. So I said to him, I said, well, what is your average commission on a mortgage that you do? And he told me, and then, so we worked it out. And I said to him, I said, well, then all you need to do is help 300 families get into a new home and you're going to reach your goal. Well, that resonated with him. That excited him. And he wrote that down because that was the vision that helped him get there. He could see helping those families. He wasn't attached to the money. He knew that would make a better life for him, but he was attached to how it would feel helping those 300 people get into a home. So you have to do whatever works for you, and whatever magically makes you feel good inside, that's what you got to go for. And that's what you need to write down. And that's what you need to focus on.
Right. Thanks, Brian.
Brian, the law of attraction is a philosophy suggesting that positive thoughts bring positive things into your life and vice versa as well.
Correct.
But in different aspects of your life, relationships, financial, or health, but you must be on the right frequency or maybe vibration. I'm not sure about that. Can you explain that to us a bit more, please?
Well, yeah. I mean, the law of attraction, simply put, is we bring into our life what we think about. So you better be careful what you think about. A lot of people think, I want this big house. I would love this big house. And they think that's all that's required. Meanwhile, they're going about their day thinking, God, why am I in this small place? How am I ever going to get there? So those are negative thoughts that are actually holding you back rather than holding the big vision. I often say, would you be friends with somebody that talked to you the way you talk to yourself? You want to think about that. What do we say inside of our head? What images do we hold? How do we talk about ourselves, to ourselves? And if it's not good, change it. Now you're aware that what you're doing, so it's time to change it. So he always said the law of attraction, yes, we attract what we think about, as long as we go in and take action as well. That was the big thing that The Secret didn't cover, was stepping out and taking action. However, holding the vision of what you want is not always an easy thing, because roadblocks come in our way. Things happen that hold us back from getting whatever it is that we want. If we keep our focus on the thing that's holding us back, we'll never get there. What we need to do is keep holding the vision of what we want. And when roadblocks happen, say, oh, this is interesting. Okay, how do I get around this? And then that's how you deal with it, rather than let that thing overtake your thought process. And that's really, in theory, how the law of attraction works. And yes, we do attract in our life whatever we're giving energy to. So if we're giving energy to good, good is going to happen. If we're giving energy to bad, bad is going to happen. One of the chapters I wrote was called Looking Through Rose-Colored Glasses. And, Dad taught me always to look for the positive things in life. Even when a bad thing happens, there's got to be something good that will come out of it. And I don't know about you guys, but I look back on my life, some of the bad things that happened to me at the time were terrible. But I look back on it now and think, wow, that was probably one of the best things that could have ever happened to me, because I wouldn't be where I am today if that didn't happen. So Dad always had me focus on the good, even out of the bad things that were happening. And if we can do that, we're going to get ourselves in a good place.
In the Q&A of the other night, someone said something about unwavering faith. And
yes.
Yeah, that was quite nice for me as well. If you come along roadblocks with this journey that you take.
Right. And that's the key. my father was probably the best example of that. I mean, he was in the personal development field when it was not a thing. And it was hard to get people in a room. It was hard to get people to even talk to that he could share his message with. But he knew that if he kept at it, he would be able to reach the people. And he had unwavering faith to that. He just knew it. And he just kept out there and kept doing it. And when things happened that kept deterring him and showing him that he wasn't getting there yet, he never let that stop him. He just found another way around it and found another way to teach, a more effective way to teach, another way to get the message out into the world. He was persistent just in going after what his vision was. And that, as you say, unwavering faith, that will get you through anything.
So one other thing that I was wondering about, so talking about the law of attraction and law of vibration, your frequency, does that have to do with your vibration? And is your vibration how you are feeling? I think we sometimes get confused about that.
It is. The vibration you're in really is a composite of how you think, how you feel, how you act. It's our attitude. There's so many things that encompass it. But if we take it to its simplest form, it's just how you are. It's how you are in the world. And have you ever noticed there's some people that you're just really attracted to? They just give off a really positive aura. They're self-confident. They feel good. They make you feel good when you talk to them. And there's other people that kind of repel you that is like, oh, I'm not so sure I want to be around this person so much. That's their vibration. That's their frequency. And the great thing is that we can change our vibration and frequency just by thought. And that is where affirmations and all these things that we talked about before come into play. It's what do we want in our life? How do we want to be in this world? And if we are not being the way we want to be, change it. I know it seems like it's more difficult than it should be, but it's really not. If we just give energy to how we want to live, what we want to focus on, when we find ourselves going back to the negative or going back to the way we didn't want, recognize it. Awareness is everything. If we're aware of it and we see ourselves going back into the old person that we didn't want to be, change it. Start focusing on what you want. And the best way to do that and to have conviction in your thoughts to do that is to have a worthy goal. Have a goal that really drives you, that you are excited about. Because if you do, that will be the reason for you to stay on the frequency you want to be. And when you're having down times, if you focus on the goal, it's going to make you aware that, okay, I've got to switch this if that's where I want to go. And that's really it. So, a lot of people try to overcomplicate this. It's really not. It's all about awareness. And when we're aware that we're going down the wrong path, we need to change it. And, my father, what he would do if he was going down the wrong path and started thinking, oh, this isn't working and getting down on himself, he would change it up. He would get out from his desk. He would go outside and just start to appreciate, what was around him. He'd maybe pick up one of the dogs. He would do something that would change his vibration. So, my wife, one of the big things for her that he always had her do when she got stuck on something or was getting frustrated with something, she loves to go out hiking and go for walks, in the woods. And he would say to her, Corey, put everything down and go for a walk in the woods. Get out and change it up. And by changing it up, we allow our mind to refresh. So that's one of the tools that I guess was in his tool bag that he always shared.
Brian, you mentioned something earlier about paradigms. So paradigm is that's a multitude of habits. And does that go with quantum leap? And what is a quantum leap, and do you create your own quantum leap in your own life?
Wow, man, you guys got good questions. So quantum leap, it's funny you say that today, because I just had a message from Bryce Pritchett, who wrote the foreword to the book. He wrote a book called U Squared, and it was all about quantum leaps. So it's kind of really fresh in my mind. He talks about quantum leaps and how we can make drastic changes in our lives. Most people, when they improve their life, they improve it gradually, step by step by step. Well, Price challenged people that we can make quantum leaps in our life and change things dramatically. And how we do that is by changing our paradigms. And our paradigms are a multitude of habits. So if you want to make a quantum leap, you need to think about what are the little things you're doing every day? What habits are you in? What controls you through your day? And we need to give thought to positive habits, things that we're not doing that we know will make a difference for our outcome. And if we can change a habit or form new habits that are productive, then we'll allow a quantum leap, which is rather than just going level by level, we'll make a drastic change in our life. And the cool thing about making a quantum leap is it doesn't require a lot. Sometimes it's just a tiny habit, something as simple as writing out an affirmation every morning. If you're not doing that, you start doing that, all of a sudden you will look at life in a different way and you'll start doing things in a different way. That will allow for a quantum leap. It's changing small habits. It's the little things that we do every day. If we can change some of those for the better, big things happen for us.
Then, Brian, I was wondering what some of the goals that you have for yourself in the next few years.
Well, my big goal right now, quite frankly, is with this book. My father knew the secret. I have a goal that I want to see this in 100,000 hands pretty soon, in short order, because I know that if it gets in 100,000 hands, it'll start to get into a lot more. And that is, it comes down to a psychic income goal, if I'm really to be honest. I don't know if you know, but you don't get rich on selling a book. Most of it stays in Amazon and whoever else is all taking part. But for me, it's getting the message of what my father taught me out to as many people as possible, because I know it will change your life when you read this book. If you start taking action on some of the lessons in this book, it'll change your life. So my big goal is right now to get to 100,000 sales of the book. And if I'm to be honest, I don't have a clue how to do it. I don't know how to get there yet, but I'm doing the work. I'm doing what I can do every day. It's getting on podcasts, going out, talking to people, doing whatever I can do to get the message out. And, Francois and Fritz, you guys are helping me. You're helping get the message out. So that's my big goal. It's to some people that may be just an okay goal. Others it would be it doesn't really matter. For me, it inspires me. And it's causing me to step out and do things that I normally would not have done. I'm not going fishing as often as I'd like to. I'm not doing some of the other things that I would have normally done. I'm doing what is required to get there. And I know my father would be proud of what I'm doing. Next a week from now, we're going to be in Copenhagen. I'm going to be speaking on stage in Copenhagen about the book. And then I'm going to Ireland and speaking on a stage there about the book. I'm doing whatever is required to get the message out there, to get those books in hands that will help people. So that's my goal. And I'm like so zero focused right now on that, that nothing else matters at the moment.
Brian, we hope we can help you in South Africa as well, so that South Africans can support you and help the book. And it's obviously a good read, and you can learn a lot from reading it. So, yeah. Yeah,
I appreciate that very much.
Brian, do you think The Secret, the movie, do you think that was one of Bob's quantum leaps in his life?
It was definitely a quantum leap in his life. Yes. Yes. And, the cool thing about The Secret is a lot of people don't know this. The Secret was all based on the law of attraction. And if you just keep giving energy towards something, it will come into your life. Well, my father was, his phone, I'll just tell you a little short story. On his phone, he had a whole bunch of messages on there, and he was rushing between events, and he couldn't quite deal with it. He was at an airport going to somewhere else. And so he called Gina, who was really my father's right-hand person. She did everything for Dad. She's actually responsible for helping build a lot of the programs that my father created. He called Gina and said, Gina, can you clear off all the messages in my phone? I just can't get to it all right now. And he said, there's one message in particular is from somebody. It sounded like it was Glenda. It was kind of broken up. I think she's from Australia, but if you can, get to that. And she said, sure. So she did. Well, Glenda was Rhonda Byrne's sister, and they were filming the movie The Secret, and they wanted my father in the movie, and they've been trying to reach him for like a month or two. And they were filming in Aspen, Colorado, in the United States the following weekend, and they wanted him to be able to be there to film. Well, it just so happened that that particular weekend, he was doing a seminar in Aspen, Colorado, right across the street from where they were filming. I mean, you can't make that up. And so he was already there, so it was easy for him. So then he just walked across the street, recorded his part, walked back, and that was it. He was done. That was a quantum leap for a couple of things. The reason why it happened was because he was always focused on his goal. He knew, he just expected something was going to happen in his life that was going to be big, that would propel him to another stage. He didn't know what that was going to be, but he was always open to what was around and what was coming his way. That's a big part of it. We're not always open to the good that wants to come to us. We have to be aware of it. So he was open to go and be on that, in that movie. They weren't paying the speakers. So some speakers refused because they weren't going to be paid. He just wanted to get his message out. So he went across and did it, for free. And he was rewarded. I can't even imagine how much because of that. So that was a quantum leap. And that quantum leap happened because he was willing to do the work. He was open to opportunities, and he was willing to do whatever it took to get that message out. And once that message came out, it propelled him to a whole nother level. And that was for sure a serious quantum leap.
Do you think there will be a second movie or maybe a second book, a follow-up on this book?
On mine?
On yours and The Secret as well, yeah. Maybe you can, about 10 years from now, you can write your own book, your life.
I know the Secret has come out with a couple of follow-ups. Nothing ever made it as big as the original, but they have. And as far as I'm concerned, I can't say yes or no. I am so living in the, we talk about the hourglass and being in the present moment. I am so living in the present moment right now. And I'm just doing whatever I can right now to get this book out there, that I haven't given thought to what's next. So that's probably not a bad thing, because I'm really working towards something big at the moment. But yes, there may be something else that will come down the road. I can't say I know that yet, because that's not my focus is on the here and now.
Yeah.
So for the people watching, Brian, where do they get your book? Where do they purchase it? Yeah.
You can just go to brianproctor.com. If you go to brianproctor.com, there'll be links that you can purchase the book in whatever country you're in. And there's also going to be some bonuses there that you can get if you purchase the book. That's the easiest way. If you're somewhere where you can get Amazon, the book is on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. But if you just go to brianproctor.com, you'll find everything there for you.
Okay, awesome.
That's awesome. And do you have any last words of wisdom for us to leave us with?
Well, you know what? I think I'll go back to what we talked about in the beginning. If I'm to leave anybody with a last word, it's be the best version of yourself today. Just give energy to that. Be the best person you can be today. My God, if we can all be the best person every day, this world is going to be a better place. We're going to live a better life, and we'll be more effective. We'll have better business. We'll have better relationships. Everything's better if we live and be the best version of ourselves every day. So that would be it. My father lived that. He was always the best version of himself, and I love that about him. It was a very special quality. So that would be what I would want to leave everyone with today.
Okay, awesome.
That's awesome. Thanks, Brian. Thanks for taking the time to have a conversation with us. It's a tremendous honor for us, and we greatly enjoyed it.
Well, Francois and Fritz, I appreciate your time. I've enjoyed this. It's been great talking with you both, and I appreciate your help.
Thanks a lot, Brian.